All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And good morning. Oh, I feel it. Another week. Some delicious pieces of news, many of which you will get to today. Kim, how are you?
Kim, how are you?
Good morning. You had a big weekend, huh?
I did have a big weekend. Kim does seem a little hot, doesn't she? That's what I say every day. She does seem hot to me, and she's hot in every way. I went to the desert this weekend with the lovely Courtney, who you'll hear from later in the hour. We had a relaxing weekend in the desert. It was very nice. And we could only go because we did finally find a cat sitter, everyone. And that was, it was not an easy task. We interviewed several. We finally got a good one. And so we were able to go. It was a quick trip, but it was pretty great. So rested and ready is what we are. There's one very important thing you need to know, and that is that we are recording this, but we will review all the Trumpian news, and Kim is live, and so the show will be live today. But this portion that you're watching right now is recorded because I have to work all week, so we'll record chunks for you, so just that we can stay connected. But sadly, I have to work. I am excited about so many developments. I mean, in essence, I mean, and it's funny. I talked to David Katz over the weekend. The situation around Donald Trump, while having a few complexities to it, it's a pretty stark case. He is in some real legal jeopardy. Now, the question as to whether or not there will be any political jeopardy is a different one, because clearly the cult of MAGA is not moving. In fact, Donald Trump has been able to raise money off of this indictment in a pretty powerful way.
Is that the craziest thing?
The GOP is an amazing thing these days. They are closing ranks behind and around a president who clearly was reckless and deliberate in obscuring the truth, in obstructing justice. And by the way, speaking of obstructing justice, in a moment you'll hear we're going to do a law and disorder, and a lot of it has to do, as you might imagine, with the former president. The Mueller report, Mueller, although not charging the president, essentially laid out all of these instances of the president obstructing justice, and those could have been followed up upon, but they were not. So, Trump, who is completely lawless, of course, and really operates as though he is a mob boss, he has found that he's gotten away with it, frankly, to this point. Now we'll find out if this latest evidence, and I have to say, this is more than a documents case. When somebody takes defense documents and classified documents that relate to vulnerabilities, frankly, of this nation and of other nations, allied nations.
Like, I don't know, nukes?
Yeah. I mean, it's deeply troubling. So we'll get to that, and we'll touch on it in Law and Disorder in just a moment. Also, I have a story in Law and Disorder that has nothing to do with Trump, nothing to do with politics. It's pretty wild, though, and I think you will enjoy it. So also today, Courtney should be through with Mark's Murder Mystery Monday, and I believe she is going to review the case of Ted Kaczynski. I call him Ted. I call all the bombers, Theodore Kaczynski is his really given name. He died over the weekend. And I know. He has what was he, 83?
That's pretty old. Yeah.
Well, he apparently, and she will tell you this for sure, was dealing with some kind of questions as to his sexuality. He had even met with some experts as to whether or not it was feasible to get a sex change operation. There's some of that in this already bizarre case of Ted Kaczynski. Yeah. So all of that is still ahead. How was your weekend, Kim, before I get ahead to Law and Disorder?
It's a busy weekend. That last week of school with all the activities, it's just, it's crammed.
Yeah. I forget those kids, they have their own lives. You have to wrangle them.
You do.
Yeah.
And now we have one going to Washington, D.C. this week to visit
exciting.
the Mark Thompson homeland, which is nice. And then we have another one going to drama camp. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like drama camp is the camp that you run every day in your house. Am I wrong about
Pretty
that?
much is.
There is a lot of drama in that house most days. Yeah. All right, smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
I think there's no reason to delay it further. How about some Law and Disorder?
Oh, okay. If you feel like it.
I find no matter how much I ramp up the intro, it's still never there.
Wait, hold on. Here it is.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark.
I know. That's not right. That's not right.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Well, tomorrow's the day that Donald Trump is to appear in court in Miami. And, David Katz, who is our regular here, former federal prosecutor, spoke, I thought, quite accurately in what might have been in another one of his moments where he predicts a future development so both accurately and in this case, problematically. David Katz talked about the fact that if you file in Florida, that's why I say Trump will be arraigned at this federal courthouse in Miami, you have wrapped up in that a lot of things that you can't control, one of which is that the trial will be presided upon by a Trump-appointed, and it's one thing to be Trump-appointed as a judge, which she is, but a Trump loyalist who has already ruled for Trump in controversial ways in prior legal work. So
that's a picture of him at his last court appearance,
So he's ended up kind of on his home court, if you want to think of it that way. But it happens on Tuesday. And again, the possibility of protests exists down there. And I'll get to that in a moment. There's actually calls on the part of American legislators. This is amazing to me. Political officials to take up arms for Donald Trump. Like this is the last war type thing. And it's right here on American soil. But in any case, it will be tomorrow that he'll actually go into the courtroom, and this 49-page indictment, which was unsealed on Friday, with 37 counts related to Trump's post-presidential handling of classified materials at the Mar-a-Lago residence, it will all be laid out. The evidence against Donald Trump is damning, as we were saying. And over the weekend, on the Sunday shows, there were any number of both legal analysts, political analysts, and even in one case, and we'll play it for you now, a Trump loyalist, former Trump loyalist, who essentially said, wow, looking at this is another level of lawlessness and another level of vulnerability that the President of the United States has exposed us to. Bill Barr is who I'm talking about, his former attorney general. This is a guy who dry cleaned the Mueller report for him. Remember when the Mueller report came out, this much anticipated report? Bill Barr came forward first, William Barr, the attorney general, and in I believe it was 4 pages, a document that, quote, summarized the findings of the Mueller report, completely eliminated and erased and recrafted what was in the Mueller report so as to suggest there was nothing indictable in there. There was nothing illegal that the former president had done. I mention that because this is a guy who will go to the mat for Trump in the past. On this one, Here's what he said yesterday on Fox's Sunday show.
Of the council. And we can't forget here that this entire thing came about because of reckless conduct of the president. If he had just turned over the documents, which I think every other person in the country would have done, they're the government's documents. They're official records. They're not his personal records. Battle plans for an attack on another country or Defense Department documents about our capabilities are in no universe Donald J. Trump's personal documents. They are the government's documents.
What about the arguments they'll say, okay, when it came to President Obama leaving, or, President Biden was vice president when some of these documents allegedly that he's got, that's a different question. But when you think about somebody like President Obama or President Clinton, the sock drawer case with President Clinton, they'll point to these and say, listen,
so there are two big lies, I think, that are out there right now. One is, these other presidents took all these documents. Those were situations where they arranged with the archives to set up special space under the management control and security provided by the archivist to temporarily put documents until the libraries were ready. These were not people just putting them in their basement. Okay. And the second thing that the president, this idea that the president has complete authority to declare any document personal is obvious. It's facially ridiculous. That opinion had to do with the distinction between official records, which are records prepared by government agencies for the purpose of government action, and personal documents as opposed to official documents, which are things prepared by the president, such as a diary or notes, which are not used in the government's deliberations. And yes, as to the second class, stuff that the president himself generates, the president has some discretion. But these are official documents. It's inarguable. The president's daily brief provided by the intelligence community is not Donald J. Trump's personal document, period.
I'm guessing that you're not going to join his legal team as he's now putting together a new legal team.
Well,
do you still talk to the president? Like, how is he going to feel about your public take on this case?
Well, he's been angry with me for a while, but, I defend the president on Russiagate. I stood up and called out Alvin Bragg's politicized hit job. And I have spoken out for 30 years about the abuse of the criminal justice process to influence politics. But this is simply not true. This particular episode of trying to retrieve those documents, the government acted responsibly, and it was Donald J. Trump who acted irresponsibly.
So there you go. So that's Bill Barr speaking emphatically and specifically about this case. I thought it was notable. As I mentioned to you, I'm no fan of Bill Barr. He stated it quite clearly. I think one of the things that's talked about is this Clinton email case, and why didn't they bring cases against Clinton on her emails? Clinton is constantly cited by Trump, of course. There are big differences between the two. And by the way, to be fair, Hillary Clinton was thoroughly investigated. Hey, Mr. President, Donald Trump, you were president. It was your Justice Department. You investigated Hillary Clinton. You certainly could have locked her up or brought charges had anything been there. She was being investigated by the FBI. It turned up nothing.
I feel like Bill Barr does what's convenient for Bill Barr. If he were still in public office, if he were still in the Trump administration, he would be singing Trump's praises. I don't trust him to do what's right. He does what's right at the moment for him.
Oh, there's no question that's you've said. I think you're right. There's utter political expedience on the part of Barr, and he will say what he needs to say to, I think, represent the administration, for which he's working. And that's what happened with the Mueller report. Right. I don't think, though, and maybe it's just a broken clock is right twice a day. I don't think, though, that there's anything incorrect in what we just heard him say about the Trump document case. This is a guy who, again, had he returned these documents when originally the request went in, the whole thing would we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
Right.
And another piece of evidence for that is all the documents that were returned after the first request from the archivist. They're not part of this case. The only thing that's part of this case are the documents that were not returned. And then, of course, the subsequent revelations that Trump waived the documents in front of people, shared some of the information from the documents with others. This is what we know. And we also know that he was aware of the fact that they continued to have top secret or classified categorizations.
And it looks like it was an effort to be braggadocious or to feel somehow important. And
Sure.
I mean, isn't it important enough that you were the president of the United States? Isn't that the unspoken thing where it's, you're very important and you don't have to keep doing things that make you feel important because you kind of hit the pinnacle of importance there?
One of the things that you do to show off the fact that you were president of the United States is talk about it, and also, apparently in Trump's case, show some of this stuff off. I will tell you there's some troubling other things that lurk in all of this, and that is we don't know who saw this. These are incredibly sensitive pieces of information, and we also don't know if there was some commerce involved. I mean, we just don't know. I mean, was he trying to sell the information? Was the information taken by others and then sold? We really just don't know who's seen this. The stuff that we do know is illegal and damnable. I mean, it's unconscionable. A president of the United States not treating these kinds of sensitive, revelatory type documents, that is to say, America's vulnerabilities, allies' vulnerabilities, details about the nuclear program. You're not treating them with the kind of sacrosanct respect that they must have. It's unimaginable.
Yeah,
but I was just going to mention, Hillary Clinton relied on that private email system.
Yeah.
That was a lazy thing that she did. I mean, it was really done out of laziness and recklessness, and she shouldn't be let off the hook on that. And I'm okay with. I was certainly happy with prosecuting her if that was appropriate. I mean, but she was investigated by the FBI, as you well know. I mean, they announced that they were investigating her again 11 days before the presidential election. Remember? That's one of the reasons Comey, I think, threw the last election for Donald Trump, whether he wanted to or not. But of the 30,000 emails turned over by Clinton's representatives, the FBI said 110 in 52 email chains were found to have classified information, including some at the top secret level. They closed the investigation, though, after looking at this Clinton stuff, and they did conclude that she did not intend to break the law. Trump, in this indictment filed by Jack Smith, it suggested left the White House after his term, took hundreds of classified documents with him to Mar-a-Lago, then repeatedly impeded efforts by the government he once oversaw to get those records back. So the material that he retained, according to prosecutors, was related to the American nuclear program, weapons and defense capabilities, as Kim has mentioned, and foreign countries and potential vulnerabilities to an attack. If that information was exposed, it could jeopardize the safety of the military and of human sources who are working around the globe. And so beyond just the hoarding of documents, like putting them in the bathroom, in the ballroom, in the shower, in the bedroom.
I mean, really?
The Justice Department is saying that Trump showed highly sensitive material to visitors who didn't have security clearance. They're just members of Mar-a-Lago. They literally, I mean, if you were a spy, you could get a membership to Mar-a-Lago, and if you're any kind of Russian asset, Chinese asset, you pick out the country you want. And you could literally have a shot at seeing these things. As it turns out, if you can get to the bathroom and ballroom, you can get a shot at all kinds of things. Photograph. 37 felony counts but again, it's nothing like the Clinton case. It just isn't.
I think the outrageousness of it is what surprises me, but really if you look at what it is and the why, allegedly, it shouldn't be a surprise, because what we saw on January 6th was ego-based, motivated by ego, right? He put himself and his ego over America, over the safety and the democratic process of America. Yet again, here we have a situation, allegedly, where he puts his ego over what's good for America. So over and over again, he's shown us who he is. And I don't know how many times you can do that before it finally catches up with you.
Well, he's egomaniacal, that's
Mhm.
without question, and he's all these narcissistic, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
I mean, his personality has been dissected in a million different ways. He's clearly an egomaniac, but he, to the exclusion of any good judgment, he's also not a smart man. He's just not. Now, he has political instincts that are really incredibly good. Please don't misunderstand me, but he, is a vindictive egomaniac, and it's led us to this place. Now, what's happened is he has a cult of personality for speaking about the same hateful things in his judgment that others hate. That was one of the things that propelled him to the presidency. And in that cult, which is powerful, there are others, and now they are public officials who are calling for violence and an uprising to defend him. In social media posts and public remarks, close allies of Trump, including a member of Congress, have portrayed this indictment as an act of war. They've called for retribution and highlighted the fact that much of his base carries weapons. You heard the Carrie Lake. She was saying that here's the quote. I have a message tonight for Merrick Garland and Jack Smith and Joe Biden and the guys back there in the fake news media. You should listen up also. This one's for you. If you want to get President Trump, you're going to have to go through me. And you're going to have to go through 75 million Americans just like me. And I'm going to tell you, most of us are card-carrying members of the NRA.
Is that a threat?
She got a huge reaction from the crowd. And I was struck by what you just asked, which is that illegal to incite a kind of violent uprising like that? Maybe it runs runs right on the razor's edge, but the calls to action and threats have been amplified on right-wing media sites, apparently. Met by supportive responses from social media users and cheers from the crowd. On Instagram, Mr. Trump's eldest son's fiance, Kimberly Guilfoyle, posted a photo of the former president with the words, "Retribution is coming," in all capital letters.
What does that mean?
Exactly. I mean, then there is the FBI being called out. Again, I've historically had problems with things that the FBI has done. The surveilling of Martin Luther King. You can find in the FBI political motivations for certain things. This is not one of them. It appears, if these, look, they're recordings, they're photographs. Come on, guys. This isn't like, I almost feel like, I understand we have to say if this proves real or, but
it's on tape.
It's recorded. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's pretty damning, but the calls for violence, completely insane. The country's just getting to this where a cult would really take to the streets. What streets? Who are you fighting? It's troubling in the extreme. So I'll just say one last thing in relation to that. This violent rhetoric is something that has created enough concern that the courthouses where Donald Trump's going to be appearing have to be manned by all of these different law enforcement people. The men and women of law enforcement are having to step up in all sorts of extraordinary ways to defend against the real likelihood that there could be violence. There could, and so that means, bomb sniffing dogs. It means all of the show of manpower to try to prevent this stuff from happening. Crazy.
Zoo. Yeah.
Can I round out law and disorder with a bizarre story?
Please.
The bizarre story is about a guy who ends up at the border, at the Canadian border, with 400 pounds of cannabis and $600,000 cash.
Where are my weed smokers at?
He wasn't smoking it, I promise you. What happened was he put into his GPS apparently the wrong address or something. There was an error in where he ended up. And he ends up near Niagara Falls at the border. But because he wasn't expecting to be there, he doesn't have his passport. And when you don't have your passport, you have your stuff searched. So this 60-year-old who's now at the border near Niagara Falls had his vehicle subject to additional search. And the Canadian Border Service Agency says that their agents found nearly 400 pounds of cannabis and more than $600,000 cash stashed throughout the vehicle.
What?
The contraband was hidden away in different spots. Well, that's where you want to hide it. You want to hide contraband, spread it around, right, Kim? I mean, yeah, you don't want it all to be.
No.
Anyway. The cannabis was vacuum packed and separated into multiple boxes, which is the way to do it, Kim.
Organized,
Yeah. I mean, that's the
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Exactly. Those are the standards and protocols and processes. The cash was separated into bundles and stashed in a safe. Also, there was some cash in a suitcase and a hard shell case. The style of packaging, this is a quote from the Canadian mounted policeman. The style of packaging is consistent with those commonly used by drug dealers or money launderers.
What?
Don't say. Look at that. Yeah.
The driver, this 60-year-old from Tustin, California, that's in Southern California, was arrested and charged with possession of cannabis for the purpose of distribution, importing cannabis for the purpose of distribution. You can pick up the theme here.
That's an itty-bitty bit of weed?
Well, it's more than an itty-bitty bit. And possession of proceeds of property over $5,000, knowing that all or part of the proceeds was obtained by a crime in the United States. So you got
my bad. I'm sorry.
That's a lot of money. I mean, there's so much money they can hardly fit it all in the box. Yeah.
I think it's going to be more than a my bad type situation.
All because he just took a wrong turn.
Yeah. It was not. He didn't know how to handle a GPS.
No.
That was his problem.
I blame
Couldn't
Google.
handle the GPS. So, what do you do?
It was wrong. It was stupid. And I'm trying to be a better person.
Yeah. He's got a lot of explaining to do. But with that, that's Law and Disorder for today.
It is.
Again, I tried to give you a lot of time. I held my hands up like that with that. And I felt like that would be the thing. And that would be like, get it. But again, we don't. All right. Well, we are really going to.
Two nice qualities, cheaper and better.
Yeah, I don't know if that's nice. Anyway, thank you.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell
I
they
think
do
you
it
can
for.
keep running all of
Is
those.
Don on the phone?
Right. Is Don on the phone? Does Don have it? The close to Law and Disorder? We're not going anywhere till we run
What
it.
he's got going here is a situation.
Yeah. We are not going.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
My God. All right. I will step aside. Let Kim's news take over. Kim will
Are you
update
sure
you
you
on
wanna
all
do that?
things.
I don't
No,
know.
I'm not. I don't know. It couldn't be any worse.
No.
And then Courtney will step up, I hope, with a little quick briefing anyway on the Ted Kaczynski thing. It had been so long on the Unabomber thing. He passed away. Passed away sounds so polite for what this guy did. But he committed suicide, by the way. Anyway, she'll update us a little bit on what his life was about a little bit later. But for now, Kim, I leave all to you. And I've never said this before, Kim. So on the air or off the air,
Uh-oh.
please try not to screw it up.
Okay.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, here we are already trying not to screw things up. Welcome to the Mark Thompson Show on this Monday. We got a lot of Mark today, as a matter of fact. Coming up, we'll have Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. Mark and Courtney will both be here in a segment we taped last night. Mark and I also taped a Stories from the Sky, which will be coming up. And I'm going to do a chunk of Trump later this hour, or next hour, rather. And I have Gil Gross joining me for that. So that should be really fun. And thank you for being here for the taped and live portions of this show. Mark is working at KFI and then taking some vacation. So the show's going to be a little different for the next couple of weeks, but we're going to make it work and hopefully be able to keep all the elements that you really like while we do that. But right now, oh, Albert, are you there?
I'm here. Yep.
Hi, how
Hello.
was your weekend?
It was good. Felt really short, but that's like every weekend. So we have Father's Day coming up too. So I gotta scramble along between both jobs to go get my dad something.
I got a message from someone last night with a really great idea. Why are you yelling red? If you have a dad or a father figure in your life who's a red wine drinker or a wine drinker at all, that's a great gift. And I hadn't thought of it, but I think I'm going to send my dad some Why Are You Yelling Red?
I mean, that doesn't sound half bad. That's
Right?
a great idea, Kim. Yep.
I'm telling you, thank you to the listener who thought of it.
There's never been
Okay.
anything like this.
So we're running a little bit behind for news, but we do have some for you. Let's get right to it. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards. Look at that wine flight. The Tenuta Vineyards property in Livermore, a great place to go wine tasting. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Why Are You Yelling Red and the other varietals that they have there. But first, let's talk about this American, and again, another American busted in Russia and being held. The American citizen being detained in Russia is now being identified as Michael Travis Leak. U.S. Embassy officials confirming his identity and attending his arraignment on Saturday. A Russian court say Leak was arrested on drug charges. They are accusing him of engaging in the narcotics business by attracting young people. According to a Russian TV outlet, Leak is maintaining his innocence, saying he doesn't know what he's being accused of. The former paratrooper and musician will remain in custody until at least August 6th of this year. So we have another issue with an American being kept in Russia. A majority of California voters think Senator Dianne Feinstein should resign. I mean, this is, I guess, we're not surprised by this story, right? This has kind of been ongoing. But the 89-year-old Democrat recently returned to the Hill after being absent dealing with shingles and encephalitis caused by the shingles. A survey from Inside California Politics Emerson College said 63% of Californians think she should step down and let Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom appoint a replacement for the rest of her term. Some of her colleagues, including Representatives Ro Khanna and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have also called on her to resign. Today marks 7 years since the Pulse nightclub massacre. Sometimes you hear these stories and you just remember it like it was absolutely yesterday. 7 years since the Pulse nightclub massacre. A gunman killed 49 people, injured 53 more. Their lives will be commemorated with an event at Steinmetz Hall in Orlando tonight. The shooting is the deadliest incident in the history of violence against the LGBTQ community in the United States. A story coming out today about artificial intelligence. Researchers, they say, that work on artificial intelligence are risking their mental and emotional health. That, according to the American Psychological Association, which says researchers feel socially disconnected at work because of the sudden changes of working with AI.
What?
It also found employees working with AI are more likely to suffer from insomnia and alcoholism. Oh, this is already not good for us, right? Researchers say managers need to help their employees feel less lonely and should be cautious about having too much AI systems in the office or too many AI systems in the office. Interesting. Already,
There's never
we're
been
seeing
anything like this.
trouble. Oh, how about this guy? You know him. Maybe you wish you didn't. Fox News is sending a cease and desist letter to former host Tucker Carlson. The conservative anchor just published his first 2 episodes of a new Twitter show. Axios reports the letter says it takes issue with the show because Carlson is in a contract dispute with Fox after they ousted him last month. The cable news giant is apparently still paying Carlson, which it says keeps his content exclusive to Fox through the end of 2024. So he can't be putting out shows on Twitter if they're still paying him. We talked about this a bit on the Mark Thompson show in the past, the port situation. And now major ports on the West Coast are again being hit by labor disruptions. The Port of Seattle halted cargo operations Saturday, citing a work slowdown by dock workers. Union officials disputing the announcement by the Pacific Maritime Association, which represents terminals at the ports. The International Longshore and Warehouse Union says it is committed to reaching a fair, equitable contract to ensure the success of the multi-billion-dollar shipping industry. West Coast ports, including Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Oakland, have been dealing with work slowdowns and stoppages now for more than a week. If you haven't been paying attention as you drive by the store to what the signs are saying, might be time again to dip your toe into the lottery. Tonight's Powerball drawing is worth $324 million. The cash option that works out just over $167 million. I think that'll work. Tomorrow night brings on the Mega Millions drawing with that jackpot standing at $260 million. Ooh. And I have a dream job for you. Are you ready for this? You have to be, though, very, very lactose tolerant. The University of Wisconsin-Madison offering this dream job, the school's Center for Dairy Research is hiring a dairy taste tester to talk about food based on appearance, texture, taste, and aroma.
That's
When
not
you
fake.
smell the cheese,
That's real.
cheesy. Whoever gets this gig can expect to taste as many as a dozen pizzas and 24 cheese samples a week. Maybe you need to have a good metabolism along with this. I don't know. Are you going to be a cheese tester, Albert? That could be a great gig.
I
No?
mean, I bet Mark would be disappointed if I did take that job. So he won't have anyone to blame while he's while he's here. So
You could just say, "I'm sorry, I messed up. I was tasting cheese."
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. This
I mean, a couple
report,
pizzas doesn't sound half bad.
that cheese tray actually looks like it would go very well with the wine tasting at Tenuta Vineyards. But let me tell you, yes, it is the report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. And I'm just so excited about the possibility of sending my dad some Wagyu Yelling Red. So beautiful. You can go wine tasting there. You have to call and make an appointment. You can also get 10% off your entire purchase. It is a Mark Thompson Show special, and it is just for you. You know what you've got to do, though? You've got to call them, and you've got to say, smash it with your iron rod. And when you say that to Rich at Tenuta Vineyards,
Smash it with your iron rod.
thank you very much, you will get your 10% off. That's right, 10% off of the whole purchase. The phone number at Tenuta, 925-699 4576, or you can email rich@tenudavineyards.com for the shipping, for the reservations, to tell them you're coming to taste this beautiful flight of wine. And I'll tell you, they don't only have the Why Are You Yelling Red, which is one of my favorites. They also have the Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson Pinot Grigio? I got it right. And they have 28 varietals on their tasting room menu. They've got 14 reds, 14 whites. So really, it's a great time at Tenuta. And thank you for patronizing them and them for sponsoring the newscast. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
I misspoke. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Why are you yelling?
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
There's never been anything like this.
We've never seen anything like it before.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
God bless America. The end.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Sayonara, sucker.
You know what, pal? You created havoc and chaos.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
Welcome to Mark's
Red Rum.
Murder
Red Rum.
Mystery
Red Rum.
Monday.
Host would you be the host of Mark's Murder Mystery Monday? No, you'd be the leading contributor, the lead correspondent. What would you be, Courtney? I don't know what you would be.
The queen.
Thank you. Yes, the queen.
All right, that wouldn't be one of the choices, but all right. Courtney, everybody. Hello.
Honestly, it's the only appropriate title.
All right, so Courtney, is always a delight to have you in the mix with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I know you like to be topical.
I do.
You like stuff that's interesting.
I do.
And so with the death over the weekend,
Yes.
of the Unabomber, as he was called,
Yes.
Ted Kaczynski.
Yes.
I wondered if, and indeed, I wondered if you were going to do it. And indeed, you said, I really want to do something on the Unabomber, just to kind of quickly remind us of who the Unabomber was, what he did.
Yeah, we decided to add in an angle around more like criminal activity, and then we got drawn back into murder. It lasted a week.
It's true. We also include true crime where no one dies, but in this case,
but we'll include true crime. But it just so happened that Ted Kaczynski died, and so Mark and I were chatting about it and about discussing it today on Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
And I also note from that Andre the Giant's daughter is even bigger than him, according to the in the upper right-hand portion there.
Yeah.
Kim
I
has
hate
called
to
up,
dash your dreams, but I think that's clickbait.
Yeah. Oh, you don't think that? Yeah.
No, click on it.
Anyway, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, is there in the center of your screen. Andre the Giant we'll follow up on maybe tomorrow.
Exactly.
All right. So tell us about Ted Kaczynski.
So Ted Kaczynski was born in 1942 to two parents, but he was a prodigy. So even in school, he excelled in school. In fact, he graduated from high school at age 15, and he applied to Harvard and was accepted at 15. So he went to Harvard when he was 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, he went on to the University of Michigan. He got his master's there and his PhD, and I think they hired him actually as as a professor.
To be fair, though, his PhD was in bomb making, wasn't it? Which should have tipped people off, I think.
I mean, yeah,
Was he an
think
engineer? What was he? Technologist of some kind, right?
he was a mathematician, and he
Okay.
excelled at really complicated mathematical problems.
All right.
But at I think it was in 1971, he decides that he's going to move to a remote cabin without electricity, running water, or really making any money. He was doing odd jobs, and so he moves to Lincoln, Montana. And it is there where he writes his 35,000 word manifesto.
How many words is your manifesto, Kim?
Not that many. But I wasn't
Yeah.
a prodigy. I'm going to give myself a break.
Well, I'll give you points for brevity, though. I think
think that-
sometimes you can overwrite your manifesto.
But like, how short could a manifesto be?
You're
You
right.
know, you're not a couple paragraphs.
Yeah, maybe you should take another look at it, Kim. Maybe it's too short.
Also, they were showing images of it being handwritten now. Do you know how many pages 35,000 words is, Mark? Single spaced.
Wow. How many pages is that?
70.
Man.
But when you're living in a cabin without electricity or water or money, you've got some time on your hands.
Yeah.
Man.
So he writes this manifesto, and he sends it to the Washington Post, but he asks the New York Times to encourage the publishing of this manifesto. And actually, even Janet Reno was coming sort of in support of this being published, because at the time he was sort of this domestic terrorist.
Oh, because I'm going to
who
say,
had, yeah.
I'm sorry. What did he have done? We're seeing now. This is an artist's conception, obviously, of what.
Exactly.
He must have been identified by those who saw someone like this around the bombings.
Yes. So the bombing started in 1978.
And at that time, he sent the manifesto
Yeah.
to the Washington Post, New York Times, etc.
Yes. And he was very upset, mostly about what was happening with the environment. And so he was sending bombs to people that he felt were contributing toward challenges around climate and challenges around the environment. So he actually injured 23 people with different bombs that he sent to different people, and 3 people died from the bombings. And
And these were, I'm sorry, were they government agencies, or where were they? Were they sent to?
Yeah, so different people with different backgrounds. His first 2 bombs were sent to Northwestern University. One was a police officer, the second was a graduate student. Both suffered minor cuts and burns. His next bomb he sent was in November of 1979, and it was actually on American Airlines Flight 444 from Chicago to Washington, D.C. There was an issue with the bomb, so it didn't go off, but it did start to smoke. So they made an emergency landing, and they found the bomb there.
I just remember that this guy was someone who, like this sketch that you're seeing now, was talked about. They looked at his manifestos for certain patterns. They wanted to see if anybody could recognize this person as a family member. And it went on for a long time. This wasn't something over a few years. I mean,
No, I mean, the first bomb was 1978, and then the last bomb was 1995. And
So
he was captured in April 5th of 1996. And you're right, Mark, because the person that led the FBI to Ted Kaczynski was his brother, David.
Yes.
And
there
so
you go. Brother
he,
David with a round of
as one
Unabomber
does,
applause. Yeah.
pored over the manifesto several times and saw
He
a
said-
cadence and a prose in there and recognized it as his brother and
Wow.
made that identification to the FBI.
This
Yeah.
is the cabin they got him in. Kim is showing it now. Wow.
But he was, do you know how he got his name?
Unabomber? No. How
Yeah.
did he?
So I'm mentioning this because it has to do with the question you asked just a second ago, which were the victims of Ted Kaczynski and who he was sending these bombs to and why.
Okay.
He was actually, the case was Unabomber, B-O-M, and it stood for University and Aircraft Bombings, because he was sending the bombs he sent it to the president of United. He put it on that flight for American Airlines. And then many of the other bombs went to university students or professors or geneticists that were at these universities. And so that acronym was found out by the media, and then they created the name Unabomber.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the place in western Montana, I guess, that little remote cabin where he lived.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be an ADU in San Francisco. They'd get what? $8,000 a month
2.3.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
2.3 with a lovely view.
Exactly.
I mean, this guy, I mean, we're obviously, it's been a while and he's been incarcerated for a long time. But this is a guy who created terror. I mean, he really did.
Oh yeah, no, he did, and he kept trying to so they capture him in 1996, and he goes to trial, and he kept trying to dismiss the representation that the government was assigning to him, his legal representation, because they wanted him to claim insanity, and he kept saying, "But I'm not insane." And I think actually one of the podcasts I was listening to said that he did in fact go under tests. And while he wasn't insane, clearly there were severe mental issues. But in fact, he did not end the trial with any sort of insanity claim. He actually pleaded guilty to all charges in 1998 and was sentenced to 8 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. So he has been in jail for a very long time.
He also, while in prison, explored the possibility of gender reassignment.
Yes.
He was.
Yes. He from what I saw, that had actually been something that he had asked for, and they had looked into that.
They think that shall we say, frustration, his struggle with his sexual identity, that might have fueled some of his rage that actually led to the bombings as well. I mean, there have been a ton of psychiatrists who've looked at this guy. He's been incarcerated for a long time. He did talk to doctors and psychiatrists. So the psychiatric profiles of this guy are out there. And I think that was one of the things that was talked about.
Yeah. I mean, it's very clear. Well, this is coming from a recluse, that he was a recluse, but on a different level than myself. But he was really a loner, a recluse. He had issues with like trying to create relationships with women, but I have to imagine his greater concern and animosity and real terror toward other people was around what was happening to the environment. And this is in part because he left sort of the greater society and decided to live in that cabin in the woods, effectively off the grid.
Yeah.
So
his brother turns him in. He gets convicted. He pleads guilty. He's diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. He's got some of these things that we talked about. Now let's get to his death, Courtney. He committed suicide, from what I'm reading.
It is reported that he committed suicide on June 10th. Mm-hmm. So, and he had actually been moved to North Carolina, and I'm not sure how long he had been there, but yes, it's reported that he committed suicide. I don't know what happened. He's been in jail since 1998 or prison. So I don't know. I don't know much more than that, but he was 81. So
yeah.
You would think that they would have more supervision over someone like him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're
Maybe
right.
he worked into the system for so long. You know?
It's true. It's surprising. I just said that you'd be in jail prison for that long, and then that you would end your life. But
81 years old. Well, he had so much life ahead of him. It's a shame. He did though really have a life that could have been, I mean, something. Instead, it was a horrible thing, and he turned into this awful man who hurt people and killed people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, legitimately, as you say, he was a prodigy. And it's just it's a real tragedy on a tragedy. You know,
it is a tragedy that someone that you might say is intellectually gifted use that to create terror and murder and harm so many people, all what he felt was something that was trying to, end what was happening to the environment. And
He
actually,
was a professor at Berkeley. He was a UC Berkeley professor. I mean, as you say, he's this guy really had a chance. I mean,
and
sometimes it seems like the people that are brilliant, like really genius level brilliant, sometimes that comes with stuff,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to be fair, most geniuses and brilliant people, don't get into this kind of trouble. This guy really was off the rails.
I would say too, even worse than what we're talking about now is that so many people have gone on to use his manifesto as part of other declarations or baselines of creating additional domestic terror or cults or other organizations that harm or kill other people. So unfortunately, his legacy continues to harm and create violence. So,
well, I mean, he killed people, he terrorized people, he injured people, and he deserved to have been caught way before they caught him. Thank you, Courtney, for this sort of recapitulation of his life. Recapitulation would be a ding word. And until next time, Courtney, thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yes, of course.
That's Mark's Murder Mystery Monday for today.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And back to the Mark Thompson Show and the news. I'm Kim McAllister. Former President Donald Trump right now is on his way to Florida for his arraignment on federal charges in Miami tomorrow. This will be happening. He left his Bedminster, New Jersey golf course this morning. Trump indicted last week, of course, on 37 felony counts connected to the handling of classified documents. The indictment against the former president alleges Trump stored this classified information, including U.S. nuclear programs and defense and weapons capabilities, at his Mar-a-Lago resort. Maybe you've seen the pictures of the documents in the ballroom and the bathroom and the bedroom. Americans are feeling more optimistic that inflation is way down. The New York Federal Reserve's latest survey of consumer expectations showed the inflation outlook hit a 2-year low in May. It fell 0.3% to 4.1%. The survey also found household finances remain solid, with spending expected to rise about 5.5% over the next year. We talked about this before on the show, the situation between neighbors in Florida. And now the funeral service is underway for the Florida mother allegedly shot and killed by her neighbor. Family members are saying their final goodbyes to 35-year-old Ajike Owens in Ocala, north of Orlando. You can see her there on the right. Deputies say Owens was shot through the door of her neighbor's apartment earlier this month when she tried to confront her about hitting one of her children. The suspected shooter, seen there on the left, Susan Lawrence, who is white, claims self-defense in the shooting of Owens, who is black. Owens' family's attorneys trying to get her charges upgraded from manslaughter to murder. In the race for California Senate, nearly half of Californians are undecided. There's a little picture of the Senate goings on there. It looks like 47% of California voters haven't decided who they'll back for Senate just yet. The other half split between two candidates. A new poll from Emerson College Polling and Inside California Politics shows Representative Adam Schiff, a Democrat from Burbank, and Representative Katie Porter, a Democrat from Irvine, are in a virtual tie right now in the 2024 California primary, according to polling. So as it stands, 14.5% of California voters surveyed said they'd vote for Schiff if the March of 2024 primary were held today. It's 0.3 percentage points ahead of Porter. It's going to be a very, very tight race. At the White House today, doing something they haven't done before. I think they've never seen anything like this. The White House shining the spotlight on the NCAA championship athletes. Vice President Kamala Harris hosted more than 1,000 student athletes.
There's never been anything like this.
Thank you. For the first ever College Athlete Day, Monday at the White House, she praised the athletes for their commitment to their sports and for being leaders and role models. President Biden was initially set to host the college champions, but had to cancel because he had to have a root canal done at the White House. And this is truly, truly big news. Why mess with something that just doesn't need to be messed with? The famous 7-Eleven Slurpee is getting a makeover. The recipe isn't changing, but the cups are, as the company wants to ditch that psychedelic pinwheel look you can see going on there. The cup has had 7 redesigns since 1966, which apparently was when the Slurpee was born. The new design will feature a new logo and the S on the cup. Okay, so here's the old one. Here's the new one. I don't know, Albert. What do you think? Old one? New one? I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta stick with the old one. This
right?
new one is
I think it's the old one.
It's a little too much of a change, I feel like.
It looks like Super Slurpee. The new design will feature the new logo, and a big S on the cup will resemble the swirly top of the drinks. Okay. According to the National Association of Convenience Stores, 7-Eleven is the largest convenience store chain. I don't know. This looks kind of too simple. I'm just used to the old Slurpee way, I guess. I mean, do you wonder, do they have anything else to worry about? Like, I don't know, maybe shoplifting at stores, or I mean, I don't know. The Slurpee cup, it seems like. But okay,
Well, it gets us
7-Eleven.
talking about it, so I guess, next time we go, we're gonna say,
Free
"Oh, yeah, look at this
advertising.
cup," so
Yeah, exactly.
it's kind
I'm
of like
Kim
when Taco Bell
McAllister.
removes the Mexican pizza and then brings it back just a couple months later. They just build it up to get more more
Right.
hype behind a product.
Well, we fell for it here at the Mark Thompson Show. Yeah, we did. I don't know. I've never had a Slurpee that looked like that either. I'm just saying. I'm Kim
I mean, you gotta put the
McAllister.
lid on first. You gotta put the lid on first, then you
Yeah,
gotta top it off all the way to the top. That's
Yeah, that
the way
plastic
to
lid
do
that's
it.
bad for the environment.
But
Maybe
just like
that's
any
what they
other
should
marketing,
do.
Kim, like, you see those
Yeah.
burger commercials, they make it look so appetizing and so well put together. Then you get it in the
It's
packaging, and it's not quite what you saw on the TV, right? So
No, it never is. All right, this is the Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Bring up, we were talking just a moment ago about Ted Kaczynski, and I ran across this story about a victim who was local, and I wanted to bring this into the mix because the thing the son says is just so sad, and I can imagine not only the impact on the father, who was the victim in this case, but the son. So 2 decades, of course, Ted Kaczynski terrorized the Northern California and the country, sent almost a dozen bombs through the mail. 3 people were killed, dozens of others injured. Among the injured, Novato resident, well, Jonathan Epstein is the son of the victim, and he says the death of Ted Kaczynski means closure for his family. He said his first reaction was finally, we can close that chapter on the part of our life. I was glad to hear the news. The victim in this case is his dad, and he was a UCSF geneticist named Dr. Charles Epstein. And he was targeted in 1993. A package was delivered to the family's house. Then they lived in Tiburon, and it blew up in their kitchen. His dad lost several fingers in that incident. He said, I was driving across the Golden Gate Bridge when I got a call from my aunt who said my father opened a mail bomb. So Dr. Epstein loses some fingers, severely injured. And his son says there was really no reason for that attack because his dad's research was focused on understanding Down syndrome. He wasn't changing genes. He wasn't involved in genetic engineering or some of the things that people were really scared of at that time. So they don't really understand exactly why he was targeted, but he was. And I thought for a moment, it'd be interesting to talk to the son because I can imagine that from the time of that injury or that bomb exploding to now, he's probably, lived this thing over and over again and given a lot of interviews. And then I read what he said and I decided I am never calling him and bothering him. He said, I am hoping, he told ABC7, that this is the very last interview I will ever give about Ted Kaczynski. And I hope that's true. I hope it's closure for that family. I really do. He says his dad, Charles Epstein, who died in 2011, didn't want to be remembered as a victim of the Unabomber. He wanted to be remembered by his contribution to science. So for Charles Epstein, that's how we will remember him, as someone who was a scientist and a researcher and who contributed to the betterment of society. So wanted to talk a little bit about that because we talk about Ted Kaczynski and, he's such a fascinating character. And then you look at all the lives that he hurt. And we don't tend to think enough about those people. It's just one of my thoughts. Okay, coming up, we have a Stories from the Sky, which I'm really excited about. You want to do that now, Albert? What do you think?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it. Here is Stories from the Sky.
Stories from the Sky.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough. I have had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane. Everybody strap in.
Oh, yeah. Well, it has been a busy month so far. In the last even 3 weeks, all kinds of big stories. I'm going to get to one of the most nightmarish situations you could possibly find yourself in. Among the, let's be honest, handful of fairly nightmarish situations you could find yourself in while flying. There are a couple of real moments, and I'll get to those in a second. But before I do, I saw this and thought I'd ask you.
Okay.
What, Kim, do you think are the best passports to own now in 2023? In other words, ranking nations from most powerful to weakest only by passport evaluation. Okay, so this has to do with visas, like where you don't need a visa because you've got that passport,
right? And how many countries you can travel to.
Thank you. Like there are
restrictions,
visa-free travel opportunities, taxation of citizens, dual citizenship possibilities. That's another thing that they factor into the world's best passports. Perception, so it's kind of like one of those things, and personal freedom. These are the top countries in 2023, the best passports. And let me give you a clue.
Okay.
America ain't one of them. Yes, U.S. citizens.
Interesting.
You and I do not have anything close to the world's best passports.
It turns out that I have 2 passports. One
you have 2 passports.
Is an American passport. I'm not a CIA double agent, no. The other is a Luxembourg passport because I am a dual citizen.
You're a dual citizen of America and Luxembourg? Please explain.
So my grandmother, her ancestors hailed from Luxembourg.
Wow.
And I guess when people left in the late 1800s or around 1900, if you left Luxembourg, they stripped your citizenship away. So in the last few years, Luxembourg has done this repatriation thing where if you can prove that your family came from there, and you have to show all the birth certificates and death certificates and marriage certificates, if you can prove your ancestry, they will give you and all your children and all their children citizenship in Luxembourg, which means citizenship in the EU, which means when my kids go to college, they might get a really good discount on college in the EU. Or free healthcare when I retire.
I know, that's very cool.
Yeah. And so I'm a citizen of Luxembourg, and my kids are too. Not my husband, though. They don't let the husbands in. They have to learn the language and take a test. But I didn't have to do that.
No kidding. This is interesting. And let me tell you, it is quite relevant to what we are asking, because Luxembourg indeed is the formerly top spot, now number 2 spot this year. All right, so Luxembourg is there, but there is one country that is more desirable from the standpoint of passport in the visa-free travel privileges, as I mentioned, the low taxation, the dual citizenship possibilities, perception, and personal freedom. There's one above Luxembourg, but Luxembourg did take it last year.
Okay.
I'll give you a clue. Middle East. It's in the Middle East.
Oh, it's got to be the UAE.
It is the UAE. Yeah. Wow, that's really impressive, Kim McAllister.
Thank you very much.
That is so well done. The United Arab Emirates, number 1 passport to have in 2023, followed by Luxembourg. And the number 3 position is pretty guessable. I have to. Do you want to guess it?
Oh.
All right.
Are you gonna give me a continental hint like you did with number 1?
I will give you a hint.
Okay.
Do you want a real easy hint, or do you want like a sort of hint?
Tough. Make it tough.
Okay. This country is a country in which they speak a Latin-based language. Latin-based would be French, German, Spanish, Italian. These are all Latin-based.
Can I say Portugal? Is that Latin-based?
Yes, it is Latin-based. It is not the right answer.
No.
Now I will give you but Portugal, to be fair to Kim, very good guess, because it is number 5. Okay. So that's very, very strong. Yeah. So, but the actual answer, this is a place that, here's another, I think, good clue. They speak multiple languages in this country. Latin-based languages, multiple languages are spoken by all of the population, or by different chunks of the population. And the location of this country is the reason that they speak all of these different languages.
So it would be Germany.
Oh, close. Germany is right behind Portugal. The answer we're looking for, Switzerland, everybody. Switzerland. Yes, Switzerland is the, yeah. But I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. You got UAE. You were an actual passport holder.
I am a Luxembourger. That's right.
Of the country of Luxembourg.
Did you know that Luxembourg is the last Grand Duchy government? So it's the Duke is kind of like the king in Luxembourg. So it's the Duke and the Duchess. It's a Grand Duchy.
Wow.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
That means they do have processes, protocols, and standards.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very impressive. Well, good knowledge, too.
Yeah.
Now, to news of travel to one of those countries with your passport, doing it through the sky. As I mentioned, it's been a very active few weeks in the sky. And the nightmarish situation to which I was referring before happened in midair when a plane door opened, when a traveler grabbed the emergency exit lever.
What in the world?
The midair emergency exit flinging open is something that I thought you couldn't do. I didn't think
No,
that
did you get sucked right out of the plane?
well, I also thought it wouldn't open just for reasons involving pressure. But as you'll see in this video, which we will play for you now, passengers were terrified, hospitalized once the plane landed safely. And during this incident, it looked like this. Take a peek. It's a
The wind in the face.
yeah. There's also, I believe, Kim, if you go down in that piece, there's also another. There are another few pictures you can here. I'll see if I can show you the intense moments where all of this happened. Can you see these now? Do you see the oh, there's the people being taken to the hospital. Do you see that or not? No.
No, but I can see a plane. There's a plane.
Here we go. Do you see it now? No, you don't. Okay.
Just a plane.
This is
It's a
why
plane with the
I'm
door
not
open.
trusted with anything. Mark, we don't see it. All right. As usual, I thought I could do this and I can't. This is why I need Tony or Albert or you to squire me through this process. So I'm sorry.
All right.
I will.
Let me see what I can bring up here. Hold on.
Okay. This is on the Asiana Airlines flight right before landing. There's also a video from behind, if you can find it, Kim. I know that I'm asking you sort of to cobble this together in the moment. And there's a bunch of pictures. Essentially, the pictures that I was going to show you the door open. You saw that already. This is on the ground. And 12 passengers were sent to the hospital. So people were terrified by this to the point that they had to be taken to the hospital. Now, the plane had almost 200 people on board, 194, 48 teenage athletes who were going to compete in a national sports event. And you saw the wind whipping through. A 44-year-old passenger said that the door was opened and it was utter chaos.
Wow.
People
Here's the video
appeared
from behind.
Okay, here's the video from behind. Yeah, take a look. This is. I thought the plane was blowing up. I thought I was going to die like this, he said. It was chaos with people close to the door appearing to faint one by one. Flight attendants calling out for doctors on board.
Mayhem.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Children quivered and cried in panic. Quivered is a ding word. By the way, that ding sounds very much like the ding you hear on board a flight. Yes, yeah, all right. The plane did land safely. And once again, I believe the person who opened the door was taken into custody. But I don't see any more on the guy who actually opened it.
What was the thought process there?
Male in his 30s, detained. He opened the door when the plane was still about 650 feet above the ground. Maybe that's the reason that the pressure wasn't sufficient
There's
to
some
actually.
photos.
Yeah, those are the photos I wanted to show you. People being loaded into ambulances upon landing.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty scary. Pretty brutal.
I wonder what the reason was. I mean, was the guy just a nutso or what?
Sounded, I mean, I don't know, but they say he detained for questioning, guy in his 30s. Yeah, sounds, I don't know, nutso. Or, I mean, it could be alcohol. I mean, it could be the.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Could be, yeah, maybe.
I mean, it sounds like one of those questions my son would ask. What would happen if I opened that lever?
Right.
What would happen if I push on this?
Oh, boys.
Yes.
most boys ask those questions.
And then so I
And
say,
then
don't do
you
that.
Right. And you explain to them what will happen. I was
Right.
told, we'll all be killed if you do that. So,
Yeah, you'll get sucked out of the plane. Don't do it.
I wasn't asked ever. I didn't ever ask the question that I recall anyway. What would happen if I did that? What would happen if somebody opened the door mid-flight? I always asked it like
You're
that.
a little smarter than mine. Mine would
I
be
don't know
like,
about that. Yeah, but
I know exactly what he's thinking. What would
didn't
happen
quite
if
have the
I
destructive
fill in
gene.
the blank? Yeah.
United and Alaska Airlines pilots were forced to abort a landing at full tilt. It happened at SFO.
What?
This was to avoid a close call with a Southwest jet that was taxiing in the middle of both runways. 2 airliners aborting landings at SFO. Pilots spotted a Southwest Airlines jet taxiing across the runways on which the other planes had been cleared to land.
Dude, stay in your lane.
An air traffic controller, we can laugh about it now, but at the time, it was brutal.
Why are you yelling?
Pick a
The
lane
Federal
and stay in it,
Aviation,
pal. Yeah.
the FAA said that the Southwest plane cleared the runways when the other planes passed directly overhead, and the decision to abort the landings was precautionary. They play it down.
Just in case.
They looked into the events and they determined that the appropriate steps were taken to ensure safe operations. Okay, well, I mean, the NTSB is not investigating the matter any further. You know, we're showing you the pictures right now at SFO. Yeah, it's not a
You can see how that went down.
yeah, here it is. You can see, right. So the Southwest flight, look at it.
Yeah.
It's right there taxiing across the runways that were going to be landed upon.
United Jets coming in. He's like, there's someone on my runway.
Yeah. Wow. That is not a good scene, you know.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, the pilots are so cool though. They have that pilot speak.
Yeah.
It's right, you know, like
United 357 Heavy, got looks like a Southwest flight on our runway. Roger, United 357 Heavy, circle round.
Is it the co-pilot who's like, oh my God? No.
Yeah, you want somebody on board to go, oh my God.
He's cussing next to him, you know.
I told you the story about being on that Mexicana flight years ago, and they asked me if I wanted to fly in the cockpit with the pilots. And then I put on the headphones, and so I'll share with you just the kind of, you know, inflection point in the whole thing. And how I ended up in the cockpit and everything is not important. But they asked me, hey, would you like, yeah, exactly. This is pre 9/11, exactly. So I'm up there with the pilots, and it's kind of cool. I'd never been up there before, and and I'm sitting in the jump seat, I guess, or the seat behind them, and they had me put on the things with the, you know, the headphones with the mic, you know,
right,
and I'm listening to them, and they have a pilot and co-pilot, and he's doing that thing where he's turning the instrumentation based on coordinates or whatever that stuff is, the altimeter or whatever that he's being told by the tower. And the tower says,
your Mexicana 48 jumbo, you're going to go 655.
It goes, you know, Mexicana's going to 659. And I'm thinking, he didn't say 659, dude. He said 655. But the tower didn't say anything. This is like an hour, like an hour into the flight. I felt like we were not quite right on approach, but I felt like it was important information. You know, it wasn't like just, yeah. But I'm thinking, and of course I'm a worrier. So I'm going, oh my God, what if that's like important information? He said 655 and this guy said 659.
Are you going to correct the pilot?
Right. And that's what I'm thinking. Do I correct him and go, excuse me? I think he said, and I'm not sure. But look, we landed safely, and you know, maybe I was wrong, but it was
okay.
It was a full 30-minute sweat though about those coordinates or about that altimeter reading or whatever it was.
You want to hear my airplane story quickly?
Yeah.
I used to, when I started at Station X, I was doing traffic in the KGO jet copter and also in the fixed wing aircraft.
Wow.
And so I was flying with a pilot. I was just doing the traffic. So I'd look out the window and I'd write down the traffic, and then I'd, do a little 10-second hit, 880 northbound, stacked up between point A and B. And we're over, I want to say, somewhere in Castro Valley. And we used to take off from the Hayward Airport. And the pilot looks at me and he goes, "Hey, how long's that light been on?" And I don't know. Is that important? He goes, yeah, that's important.
Oh my God, that's great.
What's the light do? Well, it's the battery light. I said, oh. He goes, so we got to go land. So we landed at a completely different airport, like somewhere near Highway 4 in Concord, at the Concord Airport.
That
they had to
is
come
magic.
Get us because something was wrong with them. We landed fine, but apparently, if there was something wrong with that light or the battery, we needed to set it down right at that moment. But you said, he was so calm. He was like, "Hey, how long's that light been on?"
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think we should probably land it then. I just
we
can't
put
be
that
sure.
baby down.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Yeah, it was really, it's really amazing how those guys keep their cool. It's terrific, But we're not done. I'll finish off with this.
Okay.
A shocking moment as a pilot aborts the landing 147 feet above the airport runway and pulls off a dangerous stunt on the presidential airplane of Argentina.
What? Oh.
It's a $20 million aircraft, apparently. It's a new presidential airplane. And the plane was flown from Miami to Buenos Aires. The director of the president's logistic unit flew it. And when he aborted the landing, he pulled this bizarre maneuver. He stopped just short of the landing, and then he ascends quickly and veers the plane to the left before he flew the plane around the city and landed. And it's thought that he kind of did this as a stunt. It's a new plane. He's the top dog, and he was testing his new toy, is what they're thinking.
Oh.
And so he pulled this off. And if you're watching on YouTube, Kim will show it to you now. He's about to land, and he decides to pull back up. And he banks hard left. Yeah. He tilted
what this baby can do
to the left, exactly, for a few seconds. Then he straightened it out. And now everybody's laughing and they think it's so funny, but it was not viewed as funny by a lot of people who are in administrative positions in Argentina. The maneuver was quite illogical, said Carlos Rinzelli, who's the aeronautic consultant. And the plane should have landed with a normal approach in an airport that is congested and on a day when weather conditions are not the best. He should never have tried this. They veered too low.
Look how low he came.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And it's wet. I mean, it was raining.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, you could just toss something to the ground and it wouldn't explode. That's really low.
He was told to keep the airplane at 3,000 feet above the ground while they worked to clear another aircraft at the airport.
I'm going to say that's not 3,000 feet.
No, he's saying, I understood it was a free descent. We're maintaining at 2,300 feet, but that's even lower than 2,300 feet. The president, Alberto Fernandez, has not commented on the incident. But that is the new presidential plane in Argentina, and they're not too happy.
Apparently it works.
Yeah, it's a go.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
And the Lord's not happy either. So that's never good. But that's it. Some close calls and a few anecdotes, and we wrap up Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to
Give me
move
that
about the cabin.
Luxembourg passport, meantime. Yeah.
We have processes and
Coming up, we will welcome Gil Gross for a chunk of Trump. But right now, let's get a little bit of news here on the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. Not sure if you've been following this horrible situation in Philadelphia, a freeway bridge collapse, and it has now turned deadly. Human remains, according to ABC in Philadelphia, were discovered today. The identity of the person is unknown. The collapse happened after a tanker truck fire happened early Sunday morning underneath Interstate 95. A new poll finds more than 2/3 of Americans think transgender athletes should only play on teams that match their sex at birth. According to a Gallup poll, it's up 7 points from 2021. Pollsters say the results suggest most people tend to view the issue more through a lens of competitive fairness than transgender civil rights. I have to tell you a story about this because over the weekend, my niece, who is a nationally acclaimed rower, last year they won the championship, the youth championship rowing competition in Florida, and they went again this year from Marin Rowing, and this time they came in fourth. But I was watching the video of the competition, and they had, for the first time ever, an open gender boat. So you could have whatever person you wanted, a female, a male, non-binary, pick a person, just a person, regardless of their gender or how they identify. You could have two people in that boat. And I thought it was ingenious. I mean, say there weren't enough people that were non-binary or transgender to compete in this first competition. Well, you could pick a rower of either gender to accompany you on this race. I thought it was really great on Pride Month to start this new race at the National Rowing Youth Championship in Florida with an open gender boat. What a great solution. Turns out all people on a tour boat are now accounted for after it capsized in a cave. This was along the Erie Canal in upstate New York. There's a picture of the typical boats used on these types of tours. It's a little tight quarters for me, but this happened in Lockport, about 30 miles northeast of Buffalo. 4 people were treated with the Eastern Niagara Health System, saying none of them were believed to be critical. But yeah, right in the cave, and the boat overturns. Doesn't seem like there's enough room for it to overturn there, but maybe in different spots it looks different. More Californians struggling to put dinner on the table. The statewide Food Bank Association is warning a catastrophic hunger crisis is happening this year. Most food banks are serving at least double the amount of people from when the COVID outbreak began. The surge mostly due to CalFresh benefits from the pandemic ending for about 5 million families. That leaves a lot of people struggling. A federal program to help with school meals also ends this month. So yeah, they're saying this is a catastrophic hunger crisis happening this year. Another story before we get to Gil Gross with a chunk of Trump. It turns out the second largest reservoir in California is now 100% full. Phew, boy, were we in trouble. And look at that. Lake Oroville hit capacity Friday for the first time in 6 years, with its water elevation reaching a maximum height of roughly 900 feet. This coming nearly 2 years after the lake hit its lowest level, and it's all thanks to the winter storms. State officials will continue to release water from the main spillway to allow room for spring runoff as record snow keeps melting. Too bad we don't have a better system in place to save all that water. And lastly, almost 3,500 Reddit pages are going dark today. Yeah, it's a protest of the San Francisco-based tech company raising prices for developers of third-party groups. As part of the backlash, some subreddits will make their communities private for 48 hours. So if you're a Reddit user, that is what's going on there. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson today. So excited to welcome my friend. Oop, I'm frozen in time, it looks like.
Yeah, let
to
me
welcome...
let me play a little video so we can
You want me to go in and out?
reset, and then I'll play another rejoin.
Okay.
What could this be? Let's look. I'm so excited. It's the Mark Thompson Show.
Is CinemaScope.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Okay, I'm back in living color. In for Mark Thompson, I'm Kim McAllister. And of course, a lot going on with former President Trump. And I wanted to get someone that I knew would be able to help me chew this chunk of Trump in the best way possible. He is an award-winning journalist, for years a correspondent for ABC National News Radio, a former KGO talk show host, and my friend Gil Gross. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Kim, how are you?
Hi, thank you for joining.
Hi.
So let's do a chunk of Trump, why don't we? Albert, do we
chunk
have
of Trump. Good.
A chunk
good.
of
I
Trump.
thought you were introducing a chump on Trump.
Oh, no, just a chunk.
Okay,
A little chunk of chunk. Do we have it, Albert?
Oh, we don't. Mark
don't?
has that.
All
He has
right, well,
not
that's
given
okay.
that to me, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. We can do it without. But let's start, Gil Gross. How are you?
There's never been anything like this.
I'm fine. You?
Good to see you.
Good.
I know you've probably been following all this Trump stuff since the indictment. First of all, what are your thoughts on the whole 37-page indictment and the pictures of all of our nation's nuclear secrets and documents in the ballroom and the bathroom and all over Mar-a-Lago?
I will quote Jonathan Turley, the George Washington University law professor who is used as an expert by Fox News. They put Jonathan on the other day expecting something else, apparently, and he called it bizarre. Said, well, if they get him in even one of these charges, that's it.
Yeah.
I think he called it a shot below the waterline. In other words, one that would sink him. I was surprised. My big surprise was not the material or his sloppy handling. I've been covering Trump since he first appeared on the scene, because I was originally a reporter in New York. And first time I covered him was a news conference that he held to announce that he was going to turn the old falling apart Hotel Commodore into the Hyatt. And so that's that's almost half a century now.
Yeah.
And of course, for most of that time, he was self-identified as a liberal Democrat, gave millions to the Clintons and other people, and that's who Donald Trump was. But we always knew that he was a little nuts and very sleazy, and that goes back a long way. Getting back to the indictment, I was surprised mainly because, and you've seen a lot of indictments, Kim, generally the prosecution doesn't put their whole case out. And we don't know that they have, which is the interesting thing, but they don't go into this kind of detail in an indictment. Before a grand jury, it's like you do enough to get the indictment and you try not to show much more. Eventually, you've got to show the evidence and everything to the other side, but you generally don't put out this kind of detail in the indictment. So I was surprised at that. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, if they've got any more than this is like shocking. But I think what he was trying to do was to show the nation, not so much even Trump, look, this isn't a technicality. This is not like trying to get documents back from Biden or Hillary Clinton or Mike Pence. This is a very, very different case, and he wanted to establish that early on, and boy, he has. So yeah, I was surprised at the detail.
So let me show you. I think, and maybe one of the reasons, the thinking behind that was something like this. There was a story, actually, Mark sent me this morning from Vice. And it's a story about people saying they're going to protest tomorrow. I want blood. Heavily armed Trump supporters say they'll protest Trump's indictment. This is some scary stuff. So far, it looks like there's no real organized, large scale gun toting protest. But if people are following the message boards, the same message boards used to organize January 6th, they say there are people on there that are saying they're individual gun owners planning to show up and protest while they are armed. And so it's perhaps the point of releasing the indictment and showing all the evidence was to get people to say, listen, this really isn't political. Look how serious.
I don't know whether that would work for the kind of people that are on the message boards.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think that's a thing for them. As to who's going to show up tomorrow, who knows? I mean, Florida is dangerous because it's not just a right to carry state. You don't need a permit. Basically, anybody who wants a gun has a gun.
Yeah.
So that's different. Nobody showed up really in New York, but New York, Trump supporters knew they would be overwhelmed in numbers, huge police force, and all of that. So that's a different situation. Something that's overlooked, I think, a lot by people talking about Florida generally, and this, and people are going, "Oh my gosh, it's like, what's going on? Why is this case in Florida? Why was it filed in West Palm Beach? Why is he showing up in Miami-Dade? Florida is so Republican, so Trump, and all of that." Yeah, all states are different depending on where you are. In California, being in the Bay Area, being up, say, around Mount Shasta politically,
Right.
or down in Fresno politically,
Yeah.
you're talking about very, very different people. West Palm, where the indictment was done, voted heavily for Biden. Miami-Dade voted not as heavily, but still went for Biden by, I think, 7 points. So when you look at this and people are saying, oh, the jury's going to be this or that, two things to think about. One, all of Florida isn't Florida, and West Palm, I think, went for Biden by 13 points, Miami-Dade by 7. And also, in terms of the jury, this doesn't go to the danger of gun-toting loonies.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the jury, here's the sad fact that everybody who watches cable news and talks in political talk shows like I am just now, forget. Most Americans don't care. 98.3% of Americans don't watch cable news. Not just don't watch Fox, don't watch MSNBC, CNN, Newsy, Scripps, whatever's out, BBC America, whatever's out there, they don't watch it. Probably more Americans can tell you their favorite Oasis song than tell you anything comprehensible about politics. Can they find a jury? Yeah, unfortunately in this country, finding 12 people who, I haven't read anything about that is not that hard.
That just seems crazy to me.
I know. To the people who are passionately involved, look,
Yeah.
to the people who are passionately involved in this, there isn't anything else, especially now that Succession and Barry are over. There just isn't anything else in their lives.
Yeah.
So there's that. But to a lot of Americans, and the reason I'm making this point is not just to kind of underline that finding a jury, it's going to be easier than you think, but also to say something important about what could happen in 2024. A friend asked me yesterday, boy, why is Chris Christie running? Chris Christie doesn't have a prayer. Well, Chris Christie has a prayer. Why? How can you say Chris Christie has a prayer? And I covered Chris Christie, obviously, also. I said, well, here's the thing. Everybody else who's running is going, I agree with everything Trump is. I think Trump's great. I think he did everything right. Maybe not quite as much of that on Asa Hutchinson, but most of them are going, I'm Trump without the problems. Okay? I'm not indicted or anything. But people who are wild for Trump that's not an argument. They go, well, why do I want to pale Trump? I've got Trump. There is a large section of the American people who don't care about any of this. And it's important and they should care, but they don't. It's too complicated, or it's just, it gets involved in not being able to talk to anybody at Thanksgiving dinner, and they don't want any part of it. But they care about the economy. They care about housing prices, or the even availability of housing. They care about health care. There is room to run. And Christie, I think, is the only person who could run that. Now, I'm not saying he will, because everywhere he goes, he's going to get sucked into the Trump thing. It'll be the first question that anybody asks at any news conference or anything.
I think he's ready for it. I think he wants it.
He wants it. And I think if he's smart enough to do what he did when he ran for governor of New Jersey, a very Democratic state where he was a popular 2-term Republican governor, if he goes for, we've got to do something about housing. It's ridiculous that you're spending half of your take home on housing. And of course, in the Bay Area, you're lucky if you're only spending that.
Right.
We've got to do something about healthcare. We have to protect Social Security, not take it apart, and all of those things. And if he really stays on that, he could find a window, because you've got Trump, DeSantis, and all of those other people basically saying, oh, I agree with everything Donald Trump has ever said, except you probably want somebody who's not as troublesome as Trump. I think there's an opening there. And I think this goes back to the thing of talking about, the juries, Florida. Are these people dangerous? Getting back to your original question, who may show up tomorrow? Sure. We had we had the guy who showed up at FBI office in Cincinnati, trying to kill people. We had a guy arrested in Pennsylvania who was threatening to murder FBI agents. They've both been arrested. So yes, there's a danger. Anytime you've got one person with a gun, I think one of the reasons people don't accept the idea of Lee Harvey Oswald being the person who killed Kennedy is nobody wants to think one person with a gun can do something like that, even though they're perfectly fine with one person with a gun murdering tons of people in Las Vegas or in a schoolroom or something like that. That, for some reason, they seem to be able to go, oh, yeah, it happens all the time. But one person with a gun, killing somebody important they have problems with. So there is a danger tomorrow. But, it'll be interesting to see what Americans make of this, because, again, half of Americans don't vote. And they're not paying attention. And what would get them out to vote for both Democrats and Republicans is going to be a major issue in 2024. Nobody's really looking at much.
Let me throw this one at you, because this is something outrageous to me, that every time former President Trump gets indicted, he somehow manages to make money off of it.
Sure.
So here's the story. He's, of course, Trump set to deliver remarks tonight, or tomorrow night, rather, after his scheduled arraignment in Florida. His campaign confirmed he'll host a fundraiser for his 2024 campaign at his golf club in Bedminster. Late last week, the Justice Department unsealed this 37-page or 37-count indictment against Trump, alleging, of course, as we've discussed, that he mishandled classified documents after leaving office. The former president held a similar event at Mar-a-Lago back in April after his arraignment in New York, which stemmed from hush money cases. So right after he's arraigned, back in March, he holds a fundraiser, and tomorrow, he's going to hold a fundraiser. What? I mean, is that not counterintuitive that people would give you money when you're busted?
No. If you've covered televangelists, you've seen this over and over again. It's just new with a politician being accused. And it's very much the same kind of strange thing that goes on. So you have a televangelist who's got, millions and millions of dollars and wants a third jet plane. And he's just been accused of stealing money from people, of some kind of credit card scam, and he's been cheating on his wife with a walrus. And people they'll say, this is Satan. Walruses can be kind of cute. This is Satan aligning his people against me, and you've got to send me money to fight this. And they write checks, and this has been going on for decades. Trump is basically doing what Jimmy Swaggart did when he was caught at the motel. what Jim and Tammy Faye did until Tammy Faye got kind of sick of it. This goes on all the time. It's just kind of new when we're looking at a politician doing this. Usually they might quit and skulk away. Trump is a billionaire. He doesn't need your money if you make $20,000 a year, but you'll gladly send him your money. You just sent a $100 check off to get a packet of supposed holy water from a guy you saw on TV who said it would make your dreams come true, who also said he needs the money to buy his third jet plane. Americans do this.
Yep. It's wild to me. Okay. I know we're running out of time, so let me throw this one at you too. This is a kind of a discussion that I had with my husband the other day, who is a Marine, served in the Marines, a former Marine, and holds the office of the presidency in high regard, and feels like whoever is in the office, the person deserves our respect. Whoever is in the office, we respect that person, and that is a representation of America. So here's the story. It's about presidential candidates, who you just talked about, Chris Christie, but promising to pardon Donald Trump while others believe the former president should drop out of the 2024 race. So Vivek Ramaswamy and Asa Hutchinson both expressed their views on CNN's State of the Union 2 days after Trump's federal indictment. Ramaswamy said the indictment makes him even more convinced that granting a pardon is the right thing to do. Hutchinson accused Ramaswamy of trying to get votes by using an applause line. We saw DeSantis also saying one of the first things he'd do was pardon Trump and pretty much take a look at all the January 6th cases and likely pardon those folks as well. So I guess my question to you is this. Is it a bad scene for a former United States president to be seen behind bars? Is that a bad look for America? Do we do whatever we can do to hold them accountable while not putting them behind bars because of that visual, because of the respect for the office?
I've never believed in making those exceptions. One of the great things about this country from the very beginning is that the president of the United States is just some person. And then goes back to being just some person. George Washington, at the end of 2 terms, went back to being just some guy, whereas King George III had to die before there could be another king. That is one of the great things about this nation. Now, the reality of it, is it different? Gerald Ford thought so. I think that was a mistake. When Jim Thompson was a friend. He was the U.S. attorney for Northern Illinois at the time that the Spiro Agnew case came up, and they handed him, as was one of the main people on the Agnew case, because they wanted to make sure it was somebody, outside of the Washington, D.C. purview and political and all of that. And when they let Agnew, when they made the deal for Agnew to plead nola contendere and not go to prison on the bribery charges, I asked Jim, I said, how do you let that happen? Guy's guilty as sin. And he said, here's the thing, Gil. Nixon is in danger of being impeached. If Agnew became president, we don't think we'd be able to touch him. And so it was important to get Agnew out of that line. And he said the deal was based, the most important thing for us was that Agnew quit, that Agnew resign, that he be gone, so he could serve whatever, do whatever, but not have somebody convicted of a major felony as president of the United States. So an exception was made. If I had taken bribes, would I have gone to prison? Yes. Did Agnew go to prison?
There. Yes.
No. So do these things play? We already look in this case, with Trump having done what he has done and needing to be indicted, we already look more like a banana republic than we did. That's on Trump, not on the justice system. You also have to ask, first of all, look, the main thing is Trump is keeping Trump from getting reelected. If he gets reelected, he's going to pardon himself, and that's the end of all of this.
Yeah.
Except the state case in New York, and Georgia possibly.
Yeah.
But other than that, this major case, that's it. We're looking at a 76-year-old guy who is a billionaire and is going to be appealing this thing forever. The odds of him actually being sentenced to prison anytime in the next 3 or 4 years is minimal at best. So, what's the reality of this? What's the term that a judge would give a by then close to 80-year-old man for a first major conviction?
You think it's likely he'll die before he ever sees the inside of a jail cell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me throw this story at you. Lastly, another one that just, an overwhelming majority of Republicans don't believe a felony conviction should keep a candidate out of the White House. This, according to a CBS News YouGov poll. 80% of likely Republican voters asked say former President Trump should be allowed to serve as commander-in-chief again, even if he is convicted on federal charges related to classified documents. The poll also shows 76% of Republicans are more concerned about the indictment being politically motivated than they are about potential national security risks. The poll released Sunday, 2 days after the indictment came out against Trump.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you're wondering about that.
I'm wondering.
First of all, there's no law against it.
I mean,
there's no law against it unless he's convicted of sedition.
Yeah.
And he's not accused of sedition. So that goes by the wayside. Look, they weren't major candidates, but Eugene Debs and Lyndon LaRouche campaigned for president from prison, already convicted of felonies, and nothing would have stopped them from serving had the American people decided to put them in office. And in fact, both of them still would have been in prison serving terms when their presidential term started. Although, of course, the first thing they would have done is pardon themselves, which is, not unknown when Governor Long was governor of Louisiana, and he was actually put in a mental institution. Since it was a state institution, he fired the doctor who put him in there and signed himself out, went back to the governor's mace. So, welcome to America. There's a great book by A.J. Liebling about all of that should be required reading for people who think that this is all new. Those people don't believe that Trump did anything wrong. They believe that this is a political prosecution, even though it isn't. And we'll see. On that particular poll, I don't know when they did the polling. Just because a poll is released 2 days after doesn't mean that it was necessarily done after the event. Sure. That's in the news. So, I'd have to look at that, look at how, the questions were asked and all of that. But it doesn't shock me. It's a cult. It's not even a political thing at this point. It's more of a Trump cult. I mean, heck, Tucker Carlson, in defending Trump and attacking everybody else in that 10-minute Twitter screed he did the other day, was going on also about, flying saucer bodies and things like that, making it sound like Tucker had joined that, that cult of people who committed suicide in San Diego decades ago. So, yeah, it doesn't shock me. Does it shock you?
Wild. It does. I don't know. It shouldn't shock me, and I'm frozen in time again, but it shouldn't shock me, but it really does. I expect more from people. I just do. And even though they disappoint me time and time again, I still can't help being surprised by it and disappointed.
I think you should join the inspector in Casablanca, going, I'm shocked there's gambling going on at Rick's. I think we're past being shocked.
Oh my gosh. Gil Gross, you are a tremendous talent. I love having you on the show, and thank you for coming on to talk about Trump. And I hope to have you back very, very soon.
I would love it. And I have to do this from the people who actually pay me. 3-hour 4th of July special over many of your CBS stations across the country. Be listening for it, which I will go back to work on right now.
Wonderful. Looking forward to it. That is airing on 4th of July here in the Bay Area on likely KCBS.
I have no idea. Most of the all news CBS stations don't play it, so we end up on some other station in town. It'll be somewhere out there. It's available as a podcast or
we'll look for it.
Whatever people near a transmitter get it on their teeth. However people get audio these days. There it
Gil
is.
Gross, enjoy putting the show together, and thank you for coming on the Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you. Good to see you, Kim. Even frozen.
Thank you. Gil Gross, everybody. Thank you very much for him to come on to the show today. I will be changing to my little picture because, yeah, there you go. So one of the things that I have not done today is pointed out themarkthompsonshow.com. Themarkthompsonshow.com. Of course, that is where the Patreon link is, the PayPal link is. I didn't advertise the super chat either, and I know Mark already told me not to screw up, and there I go again. So if you are so inclined, you can super chat it, Patreon it, PayPal it, and we thank you very much for supporting the Mark Thompson Show. This has been the Monday edition. Tomorrow we will talk to Shadow Stevens. Mark Thompson and I recorded a wonderful piece with Shadow, so we will do that. Of course, we'll talk more Trump because the court date is tomorrow, and we'll be discussing that.
I'm Shadow
Thank you for being here.
The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
And as Mark Thompson always says, bye-bye.